Good afternoon, everyone. That was quite an introduction. Thank you very much, ConnectNigeria. I guess I need to, I'll be talking on a variety of subjects with where we are, what we've done to date, how the year has panned out, and how we might be realigning our vision going forward, possibilities, and so on. I'll go through some background to date. Some of you might know of RAC Center. We've been in operation for about 7 years now, coming to October, from October 2013. It's a delight to be here, to be interacting with you, and everything has gone digital, and it's probably an indication of how things are shaping up going into the future. In the time, as some have heard me talk about RAC Center, we really have redefined the whole standard and concept and scale of digital infrastructure in sub-Saharan Africa. We've established a brand that's highly respected. It's set the standard for quality and scale, and I think it's a real testament of what we can achieve in Nigeria. We've grown since we went live. Of course, we were affected by the recession 2015 to 2017, which slowed down some of our growth trajectory. But in its own different way, what it's done in the marketplace is it made companies think seriously about how they deploy capital on what it is that they need to do with their business. I mean, what RAC Center is, we provide colocation. Companies do not have to build their own data centers. They can outsource that. We are the platform for digital infrastructure. Even if you have a fiber-based carrier company or a telco, they all have to run those services in a data center somewhere. And the world of data centers have been growing significantly over the last few years, because all of the cloud services you use, if you're on Apple, doing something with Google, something with Microsoft, it's all sitting somewhere in a data center somewhere. But most of those data centers tend to sit somewhere else in the world. And you have this latency of how you can connect to where those data centers are and back to where you are in Lagos or any point of use in Africa. So the digital infrastructure we have at scale now allows us to deliver those services locally. Our own companies can enjoy very high quality digital infrastructure. So how have we developed, and where are we now? What challenges do we face now? To put that in perspective, I need to give a view about the growth of digital in Nigeria and how it's going to enable a transformation in Nigeria that is already starting to happen now. We have a great young population. A lot of people listening to this now fall into the sort of very dynamic, very determined, very young population that we have in the country. And we've seen improvements in broadband growth. I mean, mobile telephony penetration in Nigeria has really been amazing. We now have about 138 million internet subscribers in the country. That's larger than any country in Europe, even Russia, that has the highest number of internet subscribers at around about 98, 100 million. We're starting to get broadband penetration. The target that was set for a few years ago of 30% in the whole country has been exceeded. There's a new target of 70% broadband penetration. There's surveys that have shown, has been quoted quite a lot, that every 10% of broadband penetration on average provides about 1 to 1.5% increase in GDP. And that's in more advanced countries. In a country like Nigeria, which is an emerging economy, it's actually more like 2 to 2.5%. Could you imagine that? 10% broadband penetration giving another 2.5% to GDP. In Nigeria, we need to grow much faster than we're growing. We cannot grow our economy at a slower rate than the population growth, because if we do, we're getting poorer and poorer. That means our income per capita is getting less and less each year. So we have to put everything in place to drive the growth of the economy. The other key thing, right, is that I've listened to the statistician general who says oil impacts 60% of the Nigerian economy, just over, even though it's just around about 7 to 8% of GDP. Well, the assertions I've been making is that information technology actually probably impacts 90% of GDP somehow. If you look at the contribution to GDP of ICT, it was around about 11 to 12%, mostly telco penetration to the economy. What's happened in the last few years, just as we've seen this dramatic rise in the internet connectivity, is that contribution to GDP for ICT went from about 12%-ish to 14%. The latest GDP figures for the last quarter shows information and communications technology adding around about 17% to GDP. And I'm delighted, having been one of those that have said we really should see ICT adding about 18 to 20% to GDP. And then, of course, it then impacts about 90% of GDP. We can't do that without an underlying infrastructure. And we have to be able to scale that underlying infrastructure. The underlying infrastructure has to be reliable. It has to meet all world-class standards of high quality. And that is what we've been working on so hard for the last 6 years or so, to bring that kind of scale of digital infrastructure into Nigeria. As we've developed, came out of the recession, we doubled our capacity in 2016, and we've been filling up that capacity. Clearly, we needed investors to be able to get the kind of capital that we needed to grow. In the time, we've built Rack Center as it's a household name in West Africa now, not just in Nigeria. We have a well-recognized brand Africa-wide. The feedback we get internationally is when you talk about data centers in Africa, Rack Center is top of mind. And we have a global profile. Unprecedented from an African company, we've won numerous awards in the UK and in Europe, and of course elsewhere in Africa, and quite proudly so in Nigeria. So with that journey, we sought out the kind of partners that we could have. Rack Center from the onset was owned by Jagal, a very well-respected Nigerian conglomerate, with diversified investments in energy, oil and gas, personal care products, manufacturing, property, and so on. But we needed that kind of investment partner to grow. So after a lot of work, I'm delighted to say that what may actually be the deal in digital infrastructure in sub-Saharan Africa, we announced, and you may have seen it in the press earlier this year, that Actis has taken a controlling stake in Rack Center. You may know Actis. They are a British private equity company. They're very well known for investments in emerging markets and have been investing in different industries in Nigeria for a while now. A great achievement, a very proud achievement for us. So with that, what we've been doing is now embarking on expanding, doubling our capacity. And that is well underway. We are expecting that to come on stream very early next year. We've created a great ecosystem of about 40 different carriers that are connected to Rack Center now, and ISPs that are hosted within Rack Center. And we have this offer that we call cloud on ground. I like the term, so cloud on ground. Your cloud is on ground here in Nigeria. We don't do cloud. We say we're cloud neutral, but we have a developing cloud ecosystem. In that cloud on ground ecosystem, with a whole range of partners that allows cloud infrastructure to deliver capacity for small, medium-sized, large companies to leverage cloud in Nigeria. It means you don't have to have the latency of using cloud platforms that you have to use elsewhere, higher performance and good quality value providers that are hosted in a rack center. Following that key event for us with Actis coming on board, Jagal continues to be a key shareholder in Rack Center. We have a Nigerian company. It's a Nigerian homegrown brand. It's a respected brand, and a Nigerian team, a Nigerian MD. We're very pleased with that. And then, of course, came COVID. It's been a challenging time with COVID, as you all know, for many people, for many organizations, and not just about businesses, but about lives and livelihoods. And COVID has been a double-edged sword, really. On the one hand, I've talked about the sort of tragic implications we've had with COVID. But on the other hand, it's actually caused some real introspection and retrospection and determination about how we'll shift and change the economy. And the innovation that's been going on, the pivot to digital, has really been quite remarkable. I'm speaking to thousands of people right now digitally, and it's really brought a growth in digital platforms. We moved very quickly to deal with the COVID challenge at Rack Center. I think quite fortunately I'd been in the UK in February, and it gave me a first insight into actually what was going on there. As soon as I got back, I informed my team, my leadership team, and we had a meeting, and we decided to go into our business continuity mode in readiness for COVID. We'd had some experience with Ebola, and we put that in place immediately. This was on the 28th of February, which actually, once we went into action, coincidentally was when the index case came to Lagos. And you might recall some index cases were already coming out around other countries in Africa. It meant we moved in very quickly. By the first week of March, we'd done our change in our standard operating procedures for the special requirements of temperature checking, masks. We ordered masks. We pivoted totally to work from home. Fortunately, our infrastructure and our security tool set and so on allowed us to enable our virtual private networks, people to monitor the facility from home, and so on. And I also went into self-isolation just for no reason, that it was just my observation. It was the right thing to do. We put in separation. We checked in our supply chains. We made sure that all the spares we required were bought ahead. We made sure that all the contingencies we have by securing our power infrastructure was put in place. And we moved into working from home by the 2nd of March. The key thing was to also inform our customers. Our customers were reassured that we had everything in place that was needed. And, that's where the benefits of outsourcing to a high quality organization comes into place. Because they could rest totally assured that the infrastructure hosted with us was being taken care of. Things were already being done. They didn't even have to think about it. We told them everything we'd done ahead of time. So by the time it started to emerge through the end of March and so on, and everyone went into lockdown, we were all very well into preparation. And we continued, our customers that were operating in Rack Center continued to operate. They didn't have to think about, do I have to get people on site to, do I have critical infrastructure approvals and all of that. We did all of that. Of course, a challenging period in retrospect. We're still well into the COVID stage now. Stage one was, do what needed to be done. Plan, do, check, act, and it's a cycle that we went through. As we went through the lockdown and we started to see coming out of the lockdown, some more community transmission, much has been learned about this virus, and it's continued to be learned about the virus and what's happening. And we continue to keep on top of that to modify what we do as we need to very, very rapidly, indeed. We went to the next stage where we actually then required PPE clad anybody going into the core of the facility, which was then declared a sterile area, had to wear PPE. We'd ordered a lot of those masks way before they started to become commonplace, right back in March, April. And that's continued. We've continued to monitor the situation. We track the profile very, very closely. Now, what it meant for us in Rack Center is we've been able to support our customers. With respect to new business coming on board, some have been delayed. The realities of the shutdown, delayed supply chains, value chains, equipment coming on board, and so on. Nevertheless, we've modified as quickly and as innovative as we can into the circumstances we're faced with now. And we're now going forward, we're now really looking to how we will further innovate with the business, who works from home, who has to be on site. Actually, just with respect to our actions on COVID, we fed into a lot of the global networks discussing what data centers were doing globally in acting with COVID. And we provide thought leadership into that. Of course, we get feedback from all of make sure to be sure was learning about what needed to be done. There wasn't a book on the shelf. So we were just part of this global community defining and working through all the changes that we needed to make. So I talked about the fact that we've continued to move with getting our expansions in place, and that is doubling our capacity from 750 kilowatts of power to 1.5 megawatts of power, being the first real megawatt carrier neutral player in West Africa. When I use that term, carrier neutral, what does it mean? We're not a carrier that has a data center. Our data center digital infrastructure is our business. So because of that, we have a whole list of carriers who are connected and happy to work and interrelate and meet our customers at Rack Center. That's a very unique thing, being a carrier neutral data center provider. What we've also started to do, and some of this will come out in more detail in time over the next few weeks, is the expansion into what is now a mega-sized data center capacity. We're going from now 1.5 megawatts to add another 13 megawatts of power in the location that we are at in Oregon, in Lagos. That means that we now have the capacity for large footprints, a lot of retail players, broader cloud players deliver cloud services here in Nigeria, make Lagos the digital infrastructure location in West Africa. I believe that the economic impact will be and should be significant for one reason. We talked about fiber penetration and the impact on GDP. There's another impact on GDP with data centers, that for every $10 you spend, you can have up to $100 tenfold impact on GDP because of the value chain. Okay, so if we're going, and that's because of the build, the infrastructure, and you put in equipment, you're buying, the power ecosystem, you're kitting out cables, like all of those things, an extended ecosystem of people that have to work. That's why we need this level of capital that we've had to bring on board. So if you're spending, say, 50 to 100 million, you can have $1 billion impact on the economic value chain you have in the big build cycle, plus another multiplier in your ongoing delivery cycle. We need the digital infrastructure locally to enable ourselves digitally. So that's what we do, and what we see going forward we will start to see that capacity come in. And the expectation is a lot of the global technology players will now start to deliver services here locally. We have a fantastic geophysical location in Nigeria. We're very fortunate with our digitally geophysical location. What I mean by that is this. If you look at the map of Nigeria, Africa, the location of Nigeria is half the way from South Africa, if you were going by the undersea cables, all the way up to Europe and the US. That means we're a lower latency location. But if we're delivering services into the rest of Africa, we're also an ideal location because we're halfway from the west of Africa right down south to South Africa. One of the things we've done is by having such a dense carrier community, is every single, the main undersea cables, 5 of them that serve the Atlantic coast of Africa, is directly connected to rack center. That means every country on the Atlantic coast of Africa is directly connected to Lagos, is directly connected to Nigeria. The ideal location at scale, at tier 3 scale of megawatts of capacity. That means we're ideally located to be the digital infrastructure heart of delivering digital infrastructure capability, not just to Nigeria, but to the rest of Africa. So that's how we chart what we see going forward. Now, the impact of COVID. We all know how COVID has pivoted everybody to digital. I wonder how many people actually go out to buy newspapers now. They need to, they would probably look to the newspaper online. We have video conferencing. Digital marketing is now huge. What has happened with digital is now given the whole world a reach to companies that never had the opportunity to do that. So we hold a webinar, for instance, in partnership with Business Day. And we had hundreds and hundreds of participants, and around about 30% of those were from across the entire globe. So we reached the entire globe from here. It means that we can get our products and services heard without having to jump on a flight. And flying 13 hours to the US and so on. And some of that is going to recover, no doubt, over the next 18 months and beyond timescale. But there's going to be a different mix. And that different mix, and we've seen the benefits of digital. We can be very, very laser accurate with respect to how we get messaging out there and how we construct the messaging. And my belief is that those who succeed in this new normal, the new world, are those that really think and figure out how to be innovative and embrace the new world that we live in now. And I think it's a great opportunity for SMEs, for growing companies to embrace what we have now, bite the bullet, look at what needs to be done, get innovative and say, I can get and reach my products everywhere through your phone, through ERP systems that are in the cloud now, that are now starting to grow, through innovative means of channels to market, be it on any of the social media channels or any of the business digital media channels, and engaging a whole range of people beyond what you see. I mean, you can even see the effect meeting by video, and so a lot of these norms have changed. So there's going to be a lot more digital density that's going to be going on. People feel, okay, tech, if you're in the tech scene, therefore you're doing really, really well and so on. It's not just clear cut that way. There are gray areas. There are those that have done immediately well. There are those that have had to restructure the business into different angles of where volume is. If you were a carrier just, serving the businesses, for instance, you've had to pivot very, very quickly to serve, the retail market or the semi-retail market, so it's not all rosy picture for everybody, but everyone's having to innovate as they see fit. Now, the work from home, that's an interesting one. We got everybody working from home For some, it took a while to get used to. Even for more seasoned, experienced people with working from home, I mean, 15, 20 years ago, I was working from home when I was in BP. I was responsible for delivering IT systems to 110 countries, and I'd mix working in offices or flying around the place to being at home. Nevertheless, I've also had to adjust in certain ways and modify things and be creative in how I work. And a lot of that has increased productivity actually and reduced costs in some instances. And so different people have reacted to and responded to the work from home in different ways. Everyone's had to innovate. The children are home. If you hear children screaming at the back end of a video conference or audio conference now, it's much more normal. However, it doesn't mean that people will sustain that. Some people can, some people can't. People have innovated and negotiated with their partners about who will have the little corner in the extra room for some quietness at different times of the day, and so on. So everyone's had to innovate. What I see is going to happen probably going forward is this digitized new norm. It'll stay. It'll enhance, actually, if anything, in my view, is that we will now have more remote working. So rather than someone driving 3 hours from Agege to Victoria Island just to sit at a desk, but it's not feasible for them to work from home, there will be digital hubs. So you drive 20 minutes to a digital hub, you plug in, you do your job with your audio. You could even be a distributed contact center employee and taking customer calls, engaging with customers. Face-to-face meetings will happen, but less specific. It depends on what kind of a worker profile you are. At Rack Center, we're profiled our worker profiles. Some engineers absolutely have to be on site. Some have to be sometimes on site and not. And some will be able to just stay away. So I see a whole range of new futures coming through as we go forward. Lives will modify. And with respect to the economy in Nigeria, finally, I sense I'm being noted that my time will be up soon. Finally, with respect to the economy and the opportunity for Africa, specifically Nigeria, we have some great outsourcing companies now who do business process outsourcing with customers from the US and Europe and Asia and so on. We're going to see a shift of supply chains and digital value chains from elsewhere in Asia, for instance, into Africa. And we will see other supply chains move into Africa as investors decide to de-risk their supply chains. That is the opportunity for us. And so we can look forward into the future to say, okay, in this double-edged sword that we have that's called COVID, it's actually shown a light on the innovation and the strengths we have as a country. And my view is that it's an opportunity for us to take to transform what we do based on digital, but actually I believe it should be a much more diversified economy driven by SMEs. And we have over 40 SMEs in the country, which is not a bad thing. I'd be happy to take any questions and observations and so on. Thank you very much.